So here we are with Murray Boshimer from Total Ag Services. Brett Bidstrupp, whose 23rd birthday it is today, I understand. Happy birthday, Brett. And Sarah Hood from the project that we talked about earlier. So if we can just first start, Brett, with you telling us a little bit about the property here.
We're at Alderton, about 50 k's west of Condamine. The whole block's about 3,000 hectares with about a bit over 400 hectares of irrigation, 2 pivots and the rest flood irrigation. It's got a mix of grazing and dry land and irrigated cropping. Yeah. And
how much cotton have you got in this year?
About 160 hectares.
How does that compare to normal years? Like, how have you been affected by the drought?
Last year we didn't have any cotton in, didn't have enough water. Only had one irrigated field of sorghum in last summer until March when we sort of got some more water. But yeah, so compared to last year, fair bit.
Okay, and Sarah, you've been doing some work with Irrimate on the property here. Can you just tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, obviously Brett wanted to know a little bit more about what was happening in the field, and so did Murray, and Murray wanted to become involved in the project capacity building, the consultants in irrigation consulting. So we opted to do the Irrimate irrigation evaluations on the field, but what was really good was they had the EM surveys on all the fields, so we were able to identify different soil types, and then we did irrigation evaluations on those different soil types with the idea in mind of trying to optimise the irrigation for those soil types.
So what did you find from those surveys?
Well, the different soil types responded differently. They had different infiltration characteristics, and we also found that the head ditch had differences in head along the head ditch. So one evaluation results have come back. We're still waiting on 2, but from that we're sort of looking at maximising inflow so it matches the infiltration characteristic of the soil.
Thanks, Sarah. What are the major issues for water use efficiency on the farm here?
Well, on this farm's variation in soil type, sort of real licorice all sorts of soil types, ranging from sort of very red loams where we can grow peanuts and watermelons right through to sort of dark brown clays sort of thing that is ideal for corn or cotton, whatever. But managing that in a one field sort of sense is quite difficult because they all take in different amounts of water. And
what are some of the techniques you're using in field for water use efficiency?
Well, I suppose going back to like what Sarah said with EM surveys and that, I think that was one of the first things that we identified was going to be useful. By scheduling our irrigation using probes, it's now giving us a method of siting a probe which is going to best benefit the majority of the field. So that's been very good. Obviously, you can only do so much levelling on a paddock. It's not physically possible to make every paddock look like a billiard table if you start with some big slopes, so you've got to work with them and try and maybe change siphon sizes, which is what's been identified with what Sarah's work has done. And I suppose that all sounds pretty simple, but you've got to be able to quantify some of these things, and that's what the Irrimate work has probably been able to show us by, if you do change it, this is what the difference makes. So I think it's been a step in the right direction. Yeah.
Brett, you've got a couple of centre pivots here as well. How have you found those as far as your water use efficiency goes?
They're obviously a lot more water use efficient than the flood. So you can put a crop in there and use less water. So for water budgeting and that, it's they're a lot more effective tool. The pivots themselves, they're not as labour intensive as the irrigation, which is another problem I think all the agricultural industry is having shortage of labour and whatever. So they're good for that, but they have the limitations as well. Like you can't physically get as much water into the profile as you can with the flood without having some major issues, which we have been having with wheel tracking and infiltration, like runoff and that.
And so I understand you've also done some mapping of your storages to quantify your capacity. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, we got them done last year, or one of them done last year, another one done early this year, and it's a great tool for budgeting what your crops are using, and then sort of forecasting what you can grow with the water you've got. So every 10 centimetres you can tell exactly how much water you've got in a storage, and that's a lot better than me getting up there and having a guess. So
And Murray, I understand you've done some of that work with other growers around the Downs. Can you tell us about the results of those surveys?
Yeah, I suppose we've done quite a number now, and in every case it's probably shown that they might have had a bit less water than what they would have liked. And I guess some of that's probably because the original estimates were probably done if the dam was brim full, and that's just not possible because you've got to have freeboard. So that's been one thing that sort of came out of all those surveys. So people didn't start off with as much water as what they've had or thought they had. There was also, when you've got part storages, it's been a very good tool to make a decision on how far your water can go for any given crop, and that's not waiting for the last bit of the crop to die. It's sort of way back we're able to say, well look, we do have enough to do these 3 fields this many times, because you've got a bit of an idea of roughly how much you put on for each irrigation. So if you can extrapolate that out, it's been very useful.
With all of these techniques that you've been employing, what have you found the benefits have been so far?
Just you're able to track your water a lot more efficiently. You can tell what's going on a crop and what yield you can get out of it, and you know where the water is on your farm and how much you're using, and just the forecasting and doing your budgets for crops is just it's invaluable. It's a lot better than having a guess. So.